As I grow older, my love for the arts and entertainment of all kinds grows more and more. There's so much great stuff to discover from both iconic big players and small independent I do this on my free time in between being wage slave players. However, it seems that as my passion grows, the industry that employs these fantastic artists grows more cynical and cutthroat. We've seen so many corpos waste everyone's hardworking time by cutting beloved projects short or shelving near-finished projects to never see the light of day. It can be demoralizing at times to continue being an artist in this day and age. But then you'll be reminded of one of the coolest things ever made by a seemingly good-natured dude, and you realize that creativity can still thrive in the face of harsh adversity.
Yeah! 滑りました。
This is Goichi Suda, or Suda51. He is the founder of Grasshopper Manufacture, known for their bloody, passionate, eccentric, and honest games that are one of many that prove the medium can be considered a valuable art form. The games may not be crowd pleasers of everyone, especially critics, but if you vibe with his games, they crit you hard. Grasshopper and Suda51's biggest claim to fame in the world of video games is definitely the No More Heroes franchise, which started with No More Heroes 1 released on the Nintendo Wii, followed up with a sequel, Desperate Struggle, a couple years later, the smaller budget but still important Travis Strikes Again for Nintendo Switch in 2019, and the long-awaited No More Heroes 3 in 2021. All four of these games rank among some of my favorites of all time, so today I'm gonna gush about what I like about them. This is a No More Heroes retrospective. No More Heroes 1 stars the eccentric, perverted Californian otaku named Travis Touchdown. You play as this bozo on his way to get laid by a cute girl named Sylvia by becoming the #1 assassin. To do this, he must kill other big boss assassins with his sick beam katanas inspired by both Spaceballs and the original Space Sheriff Gavan, which won't be the only tokusatsu reference you'll see in this series. I quite like the simple yet tight gameplay of No More Heroes. Hitting enemies with both beam katana hits and wrestling moves feels so good. You even see more of Travis's personality seep into gameplay of the crass way he charges his katana. The combat is helped by the fact that the boss fights themselves are mostly well-designed challenges. The bosses are a core part of No More Heroes' appeal, not just as major fights, but as characters in their own right. While I won't cover every boss, I'll talk about some personal standouts, like Destroy Man, a crafty superhero with nipple turrets. Would you believe me if I said this is one of the more normal bosses in the game? While Travis kills many of his fellow assassins, one of the only bosses he doesn't kill is Shinobu, who would become a recurring fan favorite in the sequels, even becoming a playable character in those games. I think one of the big appeals of Shinobu's character that made her stick around is how she admires Travis despite him being nowhere close to being a role model initially. Much like Travis, Shinobu is a youthful assassin, and that kinship is probably what let Travis ultimately sparing her. That and his bizarre chivalrous code where he's okay with freely killing all sorts of men, but some women is too far for him. Probably because of his perverted persona. Luckily, my favorite boss of the first game challenges this, Holly Summers. Not only is she cute as heck, but her boss fight serves as a nice turning point for Travis's character. She challenges his current philosophies and carefree nature on violence with legitimate pathos and a dramatic suicide kill. It shakes Travis to his core, making him briefly question if this road to #1 is even worth it. In between going up against these big personalities, not only will Travis be going up against their much weaker minions, but he'll be raising money for the next boss fee by doing menial tasks and chores around Santa Destroy. It's this big open city, but you can't do a lot in it except the bare essentials. There's not even fast travel to speed up the process, you have to manually drive and walk to every point on the map. Some may find the virtual paywalls that block the bosses annoying pace breakers that require you to pad out your playtime to play minigames in order to proceed with the main story, but not only do I find this loop quirky fun, but it's in service of the world being explored and the story being told. While climbing the assassin ranking is Travis's main goal throughout the game, it's not his main job in his life. As the beginning of the sequel says, Travis expresses himself with violence, so you can see his assassin work as a passion project for him, but passion alone doesn't pay for itself. He's still a bum living in a motel who has other responsibilities and desires to attend to. It's a fascinating take on freelancer and hustle culture in the form of a video game, something that's become even more relevant today with everyone and me wanting to be a successful independent creative. Before we wrap up No More Heroes 1, I want to gush about the rival character, Henry Cooldown, who serves as the secret final boss if you upgrade your beam katana to the max. He's the complete opposite of Travis, to his slick chill attitude compared to his brash loud brother, to the fact that he's British, it's great stuff. He could be seen as another one of the game's satirical pop culture elements as an over-the-top parody of rival characters, but he works so well that he goes beyond parody and just becomes a cool example of that trope. And to me, that creative philosophy describes a lot of the appeal of No More Heroes 1. It's a game that can be seen as very ridiculous and silly on the surface, but it's so earnest and genuine it works out into a fun time with actual shit to say. These brilliant thematic and mechanical design nuggets are there for you to dig if you love what you play, but you can easily enjoy the game from a surface level if you so choose. It's a very endearingly entertaining experience, one of the finest of the third-party non-Nintendo developed Wii games. No More Heroes 2 seems to be the most contentious game in the series. While Suda51 was credited with writing the sequel scenario, he was not the head director this time around. Not only did Suda not intend for No More Heroes to become a franchise, since Grasshopper never did sequel entries before, but he was busy with other projects like Fatal Frame 4, Killer is Dead, Lollipop Chainsaw, and the hellish development of Shadows of the Damned. To this day, it remains a mystery of how much Suda influence was in this game, but no matter what, this game exists as No More Heroes 2, and Suda did work at a producer level for it, so I wouldn't throw it away. Besides, no matter who worked on it, I think the final game we got has a lot of its own merits to make a great sequel entry, even if it has obvious flaws. But before we discuss my feelings on No More Heroes 2, we need to talk about video game sequels at large. Usually game sequels are defined by, it's a game you like, but it's better and there's more of it. Exceptions do exist of course. I think most fighting game sequels are more about resetting the competitive field of new mechanics, since updates and revisions fill the room for polish and extra stuff anyway. But look at Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. There's merits to playing both games in terms of different level designs and storylines, but they're basically the same gameplay-wise. Hell, 2 started off in development as just more Super Mario Galaxy. What I'm trying to get here is that most video game sequels are defined by gluttony, cramming in more shiny things in the next game to make fans of the first game and onlookers happy. I don't think this is inherently a bad thing, of course, and there's plenty of game sequels that shake things up in their mechanics to make both the original and sequels different experiences and worth playing, but with stuff like PlayStation Spider-Man 1 to Spider-Man 2 or Hades 1 to Hades 2, those kinda disappointed me as sequels. They're good games, but they're big modern examples of this lame gaming sequel trend that I've played. They felt like expansion packs rather than completely new games. So, how does No More Heroes 2 tackle the sequel problem I just complained about? Same way we did in the last game, baby, satirical parody and a blend of thematic mechanics. Desperate Struggle is excessive in its crazy violence and gazy sex appeal to a fault at times, but it works really well in terms of being a sequel to No More Heroes. It satirizes while indulging in excess, which may be hit and miss for some players, but I found it a really fun way to do a sequel. Those aspects also help with the story of revenge Desperate Struggle tells and satirizes. The premise has one of Travis's friends from the first game get murdered as the result of his newfound popularity within the assassination community, so he must climb the ranks once again to get vengeance. Hell, the opening fight of the game is with Skelter Helter, whose brother was killed by Travis in the events before No More Heroes 1. With this premise, the game is more focused on action more than ever before, so there's no more paywalls for boss fights, especially since Sylvia isn't scamming Travis anymore, and all the side missions are optional 8-bit minigames, which kinda stink compared to the silly task from the first game, but luckily I can just go and fight people for the entire game. Yeah, the lack of an open world and required jobs does take away from the freelancer charm of the first game, but it isn't trying to be a better version of No More Heroes 1 most of the time, it's trying to be a proper continuation of the story. There's an infamous segment of the game where you have to fight 10 minutes worth of dudes in one of the final levels, and it can be repetitive sometimes, but I think it works as a message to the player that too much of a good thing, in this case violent hack and slash gameplay, can get tiresome when it's all you have to do. It also hammers in the lonely road this revenge quest is taking Travis. While he may be a superstar assassin now, getting high on his own supply of well-done assassin work, as the game progresses, he slowly realizes that maybe he shouldn't dedicate his whole life to this one thing. All work and no play does not please the brain after all. Travis may be well respected and all the girls want him now, but what's the point if he's really miserable while doing so and he and the other assassins get exploited by the higher systems that employ them? Speaking of the other assassins, this sequel's boss roster is a bit weaker with some big stinkers like New Destroy Man and the final boss who are just tedious to fight against. Hell, they even made a giant robot boss fight suck, so when this game fumbles, it fumbles hard. But there are still gems in this boss lineup. Margaret Moonlight is a big standout, especially with her banger vocal theme, Philistine, being a diegetic in-universe talking point between her and Travis. And I do agree Alice Twilight would have been a better thematical fitting final boss with some reworking, being an assassin who hates what she's become but believes she's too far gone to change at this point. Even after death, she provoked Travis into having this great dramatic speech about how cruel the life of an assassin is. It's definitely an all-timer fight for the whole series. But how are the surviving bosses from the first game doing? Well, you can play as Shinobu and Henry for a limited amount of time in No More Heroes 2. Shinobu's levels are pretty solid with some stinker end boss fights, but man, they did my boy Henry dirty with his only playable moment not just in the game, but the entire series being one whole boss fight. It's a fine boss fight. Henry gets a fun kit of action moves for it, but he can't flex them for even one proper level, which I find really painful and weird. Like, why develop this entire unique playstyle that could easily be used elsewhere and limited to just one damn boss? Strange use of resources, I tell ya. Then there's Sylvia's role in the story. Not only does the sequel have my favorite design for her, but she's a more of a compelling romantic foil for Travis this time around. She's still very controlling of the otaku in many scenes, but this time around we see goofier and more dramatic moments of the character. Even the peep show scenes when you just ogle her body have some meaning behind them, as by the end of the game, Travis finally looks her in the eyes and reconciles with her after the ups and downs of the story. A very unconventional romance, but one I find charming nonetheless. Overall, while it is the weakest entry in the series, I still really dug No More Heroes 2. It may work better thematically as a small part of this 4-game saga, but even then, it's a fun game in its own right with a lot of silly and badass charm packed in. Even if they are very noticeable lows, the high points are still very worth it in the end. It may be seen as a diet entry in the No More Heroes series, but for me, Diet No More Heroes is still No More Heroes. Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes might initially be seen as a budget spin-off title by some fans as we waited for the proper third entry of the series, but much like my beloved Kingdom Hearts, this game is actually continuing the story of the series, it just has different gameplay and structure than the other mainline titles. As you'll see, this game is very important for Travis's character development and Suda's career in games as a whole. So remember when I said Suda had other projects he was working on while scenario writing No More Heroes 2? Well, those projects would be met to mixed results, not just by the public, but by Suda himself. Grasshopper was getting bigger and more attention, but the games weren't getting that much better or more fun to make. Specifically, Shadows of the Dam was constantly changing during its long production, and thanks to EA executives, the project ultimately turned into something fun, but so simplistic in terms of narrative and comedy from Suda's usual fare that he felt disappointed. He was starting to lose his creative passion for making games. However, between the incoming arrival of the Nintendo Switch, which had similar motion controls to the Wii that influenced the inception of No More Heroes in the first place, and the rise of modern indie projects with small but talented teams that made the projects they wanted to make their way, Suda knew what his goal was for Travis Strikes Again. He had to get his artistic spark back. With a team around 10 developers and Suda back in the director's chair, Travis Strikes Again would continue the story of the otaku assassin, now in his 30s compared to his mid-20s, as he and newcomer Batman would play through various game worlds to revive Batman's daughter, who Travis killed in the first game. Gameplay's a bit different this time around, as now it's presented in a top-down beat-em-up style with skill chips to help you in battle. While it may seem like simpler combat than before, I still found it really fun to hack and slash through enemies. I'd argue the main appeal of the gameplay is the level design, which varies up its gimmicks depending on the game Travis gets sucked into. Not all of these gimmicks are winners, but they do help break up what could be seen as repetitive combat. Speaking of, in between major levels, you'll experience the story that bridges No More Heroes 2 and Travis Strikes Again, titled Travis Strikes Back. These are quirky visual novel segments of fun hijinks and presentation that chronicle what adventures Travis has gone up to after the last sequel while getting these deathball games you play. These segments kinda remind me of the purpose side jobs provided in the first game as pace breakers from the intense level-to-level action. Of course, these portions are more streamlined, just requiring you to read a story, but they still work as a small part of the video game about video games motif Travis Strikes Again has. Our boy even gets to interact with characters from past Grasshopper games like the Silver Case, Killer 7, and Killer is Dead to establish thematic cohesion of Suda's other games and to have some expanded universe fun. As of this video, I've still yet to play the Silver Case and Killer is Dead, but I still quite enjoy getting a taste of them here. As for Travis himself, he's not quite as big of a jackass as you expect him to be here. In the time between Desperate Struggle and Travis Strikes Again, he matured a bit, as he got married to Sylvia and had kids in the meantime. However, due to the threat the fellow assassins posed to his family, Travis isolated himself from the rest of the world, starting to live in a camper by his lonesome. I'd even argue that the only reason Travis goes on the quest to help Batman revive his daughter is as a truce so he doesn't get killed. His interactions with the major bosses of the game are much more contemplative and sympathetic than before, taking pity or relating to the boss's struggles before beating them up. As he finishes a level, he has these moments by himself where he thinks about what just happened and how it mentally weighs on him. Suda has made it no secret that Travis Strikes Again is his most personal game he's ever made. Many segments can be seen as venting about his career in video games and life. It's the reason why there's an entire level dedicated to the actual Shadows of the Dam game and coming to terms with how production and the final version of the project went down. No More Heroes is already a very meta series at its core with pop culture references and fourth wall breaking, but Travis Strikes Again takes it to a new level with segments like these. Some may say the game is complete nonsense unless you read interviews or play Suda's past games outside of No More Heroes, and while they would help get a richer understanding of the game, I disagree that it's the only way to enjoy Travis Strikes Again. I think you could still enjoy this installment as the next part of the No More Heroes story, where we see Travis, the fictional character, grow up and reconcile with his love and disdain for games as a medium. He looks back at how they shaped him into who he is today so he can move forward to a better tomorrow. Of course, the story is based and reflective of the real-life experiences of Suda51 from what we know in interviews, but all great art usually is inspired by reality anyway, so why should this game be treated any differently? For some fans, Travis Strikes Again is their favorite No More Heroes game, and while I'm not amongst those people, I can see why it's many's favorite entry. It's very unique from the other titles, but in a way that shows the franchise and developers growing up, with a lot of charm being found in the smaller scope and limitations. Even if it's marketed as a smaller budget spin-off game, don't skip this one in a series playthrough, it's a gem. But if Travis Strikes Again isn't my favorite game in the series, what is? No More Heroes 1 is great, I like 2, but I already said it's my least favorite one. Well, there is one more game we have to look at. Now that both Suda and Travis have used Travis Strikes Again to refine their sparks and what matters to them, a proper third and so far final installment in the No More Heroes series could be produced. In contrast to TSA being the smallest game in the series, 3 would be the biggest game yet. The open world of Santa Destroy is back, and somehow even bigger, along with the game's conflict revolving around a large-scale intergalactic space invasion. The core gameplay loop takes elements from every entry so far. You got the open world and chores of 1, the action focus of 2, which has been polished to near perfection here, and the skill chips from Travis Strikes Again. Funny side anecdote, I do want to note that my first playthrough of the game, I played on easy mode, but I forgot to upgrade Travis the whole way through, so while I was able to get through the game, enemies were just extra spongy. But upon my second playthrough, where I actually played the game correctly, the gameplay became infinitely more fun, and now it has my favorite combat in the series. It does help that there's special moments in the game where Travis becomes a freaking Kamen Rider with the headshot phrase and everything. And that actually leads to what I love about No More Heroes 3 and why it's my favorite game in the series, the way it homages tokusatsu hero shows. I've made it no secret from my previous analysis videos that tokusatsu shows like Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and Ultraman are some of my favorite pieces of media on this damn planet, and Suda seems to be a fan too. There's been little winks and nods to tokusatsu throughout the whole franchise, but 3 is the game that goes full on into the influence. Each level is structured like an episode of a Monster of the Week show, with opening and ending sequences to boot. Like, we usually open each episode with the main antagonist and boss of the week talking to each other like a Sentai show, and then we cut to Travis hanging out with his friends and talk about Takashi Miike movies before jumping into the action proper. The tokusatsu influence isn't just limited to structural or visual homages either. The entire story of No More Heroes 3 revolves around one of my favorite tropes of all time, the power of friendship. Continuing Travis's maturing from the last game, he is no longer isolating himself from his friends and loved ones, instead fighting alongside them and for them. I love how the final chapter of this seemingly mature and complex series of games goes back to a theme so simplistic that it's in shows for toddlers, and shows why that still matters. Remember, just because you grew up doesn't mean those simple lessons aren't still valuable to relearn and reinforce. As a contrast, there's the game's major villain, the goddamn superhero himself, Fu. Compared to other antagonists in the No More Heroes franchise, Fu is a constant presence throughout the entire game. Rather than hiding in the shadows till the very end, he's always in your face with this great charismatic but menacing aura throughout. Though internally, Fu is a really screwed up guy, not just because he's a villain, but how he toxically treats and emotionally abuses the other bosses in his squad. Contrasting with Travis, who makes new friends throughout the game alongside his old friends, Fu loses his squad bit by bit, mostly due to his own failings as a leader and friend. You could point out similarities between Travis's early characterization in No More Heroes 1 and Fu's character in No More Heroes 3. In some ways, you could see this game as Travis killing the past to be done with this era of No More Heroes. I also want to touch on Henry Cooldown's massive reinvention in this game. He serves as the penultimate boss before the climactic showdown with Fu to demonstrate how much Travis has grown and how much Henry has actually regressed. The duality between the two brothers has nearly been shifted since the first game. Henry really let himself go compared to his calm and collected debut. This change was apparently caused in universe by Henry watching an MCU film once and became an edgelord in response. Compared to the more niche but wide palette of media Travis talks about throughout the game, Henry watched one mainstream blockbuster and let that one movie dictate what he is. It's a shockingly huge change, but one I think works well to further compare and contrast these rival brothers together. There's so much more I can say about No More Heroes 3. Again, it's my favorite installment of this fantastic series, but I think I got to the core of what I admire about it. I love the combat, the galactic bosses, the jokes, the story, the love for art, and the love for people who make art. It's a perfect capstone to this goofy yet awesome series of games. And that is the No More Heroes series as it stands. It's a lot of things to many people, but to me, it's not just a series of hilarious and sick action games, although I do enjoy them as such, but on a deeper level, I think it's a series that showcases the creative passion, persistence, and progression of the artists that make each installment. And that's part of the reason I'm okay with not seeing another game of the No More Heroes series. I mean, 3 has some fun teases if they make a 4, but I think they're more so meant to be jokes about franchise spin-offs and expansions. I mean, if Suda and the Grasshopper crew are still going to make excellent games like Romeo's a Dead Man, I think I'm okay with No More Heroes living up to the name. So for now, rest easy Travis Touchdown, the Holy Sword, the Crownless King, the No More Hero.